First, should police investigate admissions made by the Sun newspaper following their settlement with Prince Harry yesterday? Harry had taken legal action over allegations of unlawful information gathering at news group newspapers, The Sun, The News of the World, but the trial was called off at the 11th hour after both parties reached an agreement. Harry received a full and unequivocal apology from Rupert Murdoch's firm, as well as substantial damages, although the amount is unknown. It could be between 10 and 20 million pounds. And this is what Harry's lawyer, David Sherborne, had to say outside court yesterday.
In a monumental victory today, News UK have admitted that The Sun, the flagship title for Rupert Murdoch's UK media empire, has indeed engaged in illegal practices. Prince Harry and Tom Watson join others in calling for the police and Parliament to investigate not only the unlawful activity now finally admitted, but the perjury and cover-ups along the way. Today, the lies are laid bare. Today, the cover-ups are exposed, and today proves that no one stands above the law. The time for accountability has arrived.
Harry's lawyer. Now, I've arrived here because I want to show you this timeline that goes through phone hacking and blagging and all of that. And we have to go back quite a way. Go back about, 17 years to this, 2007. First label here, Mulcair and Goodman. Who were they? News of the World employees sentenced to 6 and 4 months each for hacking the phones of royal aides. So that was the very first sign that something criminal was happening. And then you go to 2011, the police get involved and they reopen an investigation into tabloid phone hacking after the News of the World come and say, look, we've got stuff we need to tell you. In 2011, later that year, a lot went on in 2011. The company admitted liability and paid the actress Sienna Miller £100,000 to settle a lawsuit. And there were a major number of claims being settled at that point by the News of the World and by The Sun as well. And then this horrifying news in 2011 that the News of the World had hacked the phone of the murdered teenager Millie Dowler while the police were hunting for her. The hacking, by the way, led the parents to think she might be alive. 2012, in all the outrage, the Leveson Inquiry. And the judge says, let's have a press watchdog. But that all kind of runs into the sand a little bit. Off the back of it, though, you get some big trials. So 2013 to 15 trials. You have Andy Coulson and Rebecca Brooks, both former editors, both charged. Coulson guilty. This is relating to phone hacking, 18 months in jail. Brooks acquitted, goes on to become chief executive. And then the chief prosecutor in England says there are not going to be any more criminal cases against Murdoch's UK companies. So that stops there. But Harry steps forward in 2019, says, I've got a case against 3 newspaper groups. The News Group, which is Murdoch, the Mirror Group, and Associated Newspapers. He starts to fight the Mirror. In 2021, Meghan, his wife, comes forward. She wins an invasion of privacy suit against the Mail and Associated Newspapers, their publishers, because of a letter that came out that she'd written to her estranged father. So that was a victory for her there. And then you get Harry's victory. So starting to go the other way now. Harry's victory against the Mirror in 2023 is there. And we come forwards and back end of last year, 2024, and this year, 2025, Harry wins against the Sun. So now we're bang up to the day, up to today's news. So now we're thinking 2025, 26. What are we going to be writing there? Does this end now? Or do we see now some police action and some criminal trials off the back of it? It's such an exhausting timeline, Anne. And you want it to stop now, do you?
I want it to stop. I think we know what's gone on. We had the Leveson Inquiry, which I think came up with some very sound recommendations. But what I do think is that the press watchdog needs rather more teeth and needs to use them. And I think we see too little of that.
Michael, what do you think? Because you can see how this could go on another 10 years.
Well, I think my issue is we actually haven't had the whole Leveson Inquiry because it was supposed to be in 2 parts. So part 1 of the Leveson Inquiry was supposed to look at sort of media ethics, and part 2 was supposed to go into much more detail about the corruption, about the relationship between police officers and newspapers. And sort of speaking to people who worked on Leveson 1, they said lots of the time when things like that were brought up, they said, oh, let's park that issue. That's going to be in the second part. And then I think under pressure from Rupert Murdoch, David Cameron said, OK, Leveson 2 is never going to happen. And none of the party leaders, I suppose other than Jeremy Corbyn, have been brave enough to say, let's actually get to the bottom of this. Because the newspapers are so powerful, Rupert Murdoch is so powerful, that he's managed to intimidate all of them to say, OK, let's park this.
So there was a fellow claimant yesterday, slightly more obscure, but a man called Tom Watson, Lord Watson now, who laid down the gauntlet for the criminal courts to do something.
Today's result represents a challenge to the criminal justice system. I finish with two questions. To Sir Mark Rowley, when you receive our dossier exposing wrongdoing, will the Metropolitan Police act? To the Prime Minister, I know you care deeply about fairness and the law, but are we really willing to continue as a country where some corporate executives are above the law and out of the reach of the police?
Why did you huff and puff there when I mentioned him?
All right. Tom Watson, of course, was when he was an MP and former deputy leader of the Labour Party, was the one who harried the police over Operation Midland, which had such a lot of injustice. I mean, Lord Britton, if you remember, Lord Bramall, Harvey Proctor. Yeah. I mean, you name it. And
these are people falsely accused of paedophile.
All these people were falsely accused of paedophile activity.
Partly because of a hoaxer.
And wholly because of a hoaxer. And Watson was putting the pressure on the whole time on the police. And what he did was quite wrong. I've no respect for him. I actually query whether he should ever have gone into the Lords.
All right, Pat is in Ayrshire. Pat, looking at this timeline down here, which is partly phone hacking, partly so-called blagging, which is the Sun case. Oh, my goodness, have we got an appetite for more?
Yeah, absolutely. They are not above the law. They've been doing this for years and years. I mean, they even admitted yesterday what they did to Diana all these years after she died. And it's disgraceful. These tabloids and press should not be allowed to get away with it. If I committed a crime, I would be taken to court and I would be sentenced for it. They are committing crimes, the things they are doing.
Well, remember that we're in a weird situation where Rebecca Brooks, who's you would think would be in the frame here, has already been through a criminal trial and been acquitted.
Yeah, but she got away with it, and she admitted yesterday, actually, she was committed perjury while doing it. So she should be taken back to court. I mean, what they get away with is disgraceful.
Did she admit that yesterday? I'm not clear.
Wrong.
OK. I don't know whether Rebecca Brooks admitted perjury yesterday. I didn't see that.
I think we need to be fairly careful.
We should be careful. I mean, she has been acquitted. She's not guilty of anything in law, but there are clearly more charges that could be brought against her because a lot of things didn't surface in the first case. Michael?
Well, so I think the claim about perjury is that she, under oath, said she ran a clean ship. Now, the admission the Sun have made now is that their ship wasn't entirely clean.
I see, yeah.
Now, whether or not that counts as perjury depends on if she knew when she gave that evidence that it wasn't a clean ship.
But also she has said to a Commons Select Committee that the Sun paid the police to give them information. That's something that's not allowed. But the thing is, it's a bigger question for you here. As we look at this timeline on the floor here and the phone cable running on and on and on, the curly cable with all those labels on. The question really is whether we've got the appetite to extend it even further, or whether we say, look, now Murdoch has got a bloody nose. There's no question. They've admitted wrongdoing on a corporate level. They've paid a lot of money, and they will have paid Harry's costs. I reckon they may have paid 10 million damages and 10 million costs to Harry. He couldn't go to court because he might have ended up having to pay their costs. That was his worry, I think.
The question is, why have they paid so much money, though? Because they've basically spent...
Because they knew they were going to lose.
But what I mean, if they spent £1 billion to keep this out of court, because remember, there's been 1,300 defendants, and if they're willing to spend that much time to keep it out of court, that suggests to me there's quite a lot of dirty laundry that they don't want revealed in public, which is why I think there would be a good case to have Leveson 2, which was the original plan until it got quashed.
Well, no, but we're talking about crimes here, and just before we go to our break, the key question is, OK, we could put 50 police officers on this, but what about burglaries? What about knife attacks, we were discussing? What about the other crimes that affect us all? After the break, we'll take more calls on whether the police should investigate the Sun again. Have another look now, because we know that there were crimes. Looking at this timeline, this interesting timeline, which is all about phone hacking and blagging, and it's the whole newspaper scandal going right back to the early 2000s and starting with the jailing of 2 men and going on to Harry's victory yesterday. And whether the police now need to get back in there. Christine in the West Midlands, would you send the police back in?
Oh, good morning, Jeremy. Good morning,
Hiya.
Anne, Michael. No, because this would be at the UK taxpayer's expense, and he is worth millions and doesn't pay tax in the UK, as far as I know. If he wants this, he should pay for it himself. Also, I believe he settled for the money because he doesn't want to leave America at the moment, now that Donald Trump has been sworn in as president.
Because he might not get back in again.
Exactly.
Yeah, because Trump, well, that's interesting, because Trump has made a few waves about we're not sure that Harry should be here. And
Yes.
yeah, okay, and also there were
That was the main issue.
There were drug admissions in Spare, his autobiography. Thank you, Christine. Bill is in Durham. Bill, would you extend the timeline here and have some arrests?
Absolutely. It's now been proved, and as David Sherborne said yesterday, there's been obstruction of justice. There's people perjured themselves, and that just can't be accepted. Harry and his wife and his children have been shattered by hate campaigns. We had one crazy journalist who was on TV all the time, Kinsey, whatever. She photoshopped her head onto Meghan's body. I mean, she must be dreaming if she thinks she has a chance with Harry. But Harry has pursued this as far as he could, and at the end of it, Rupert Murdoch will be heartbroken that he's had to issue this apology, that the Sun have done things completely and utterly wrong. Rebecca Brooks ran a clean ship. Now she hasn't run a clean ship. And at the end of the day, if the Metropolitan Police do not take this up, then there's no justice for anybody. When people say, oh, well, it's at taxpayers' expense, there's lots of things at taxpayers' expense. Rupert Murdoch has spent £1 billion trying to hide the wrongdoings. So at the end of the day, the people who have been haters like Jeremy Clarkson, Piers Morgan, attacking Meghan and Harry all the time, they're now going to be brought to book.
Okay, thank you. Well, then they're not going to be. Thank you, Bill.
They didn't do it.
Woof, couldn't get a word in. Thank you. Well, they're not going to be brought. I mean, they're not. Clarkson has just made, some iffy comments about Meghan. That's not a crime.
I've made lots of very rude comments about Meghan. That's not a crime.
Not a crime.
Not a crime.
We need to really work out what is a crime and what isn't. David in Lancashire, hi.
Good morning.
Would you send the police in? It's a very tricky decision.
I think that whether you like Harry or not, I think he's actually taken the newspapers to the end of the line, and they've been telling porky pies all these years, and Harry has actually got them to admit they've made a mistake, been telling lies, and now the police should be called in to investigate.
You say, Tom Watson said that we used to think that in the jungle, the media jungle, the tabloids have no predator. There's no one above them. And he now says there is somebody, and it's Prince Harry. And you've got to say, Prince Harry is the man of the year.
No, he is certainly not.
For the bravery.
I think that what's happened is disgusting, and I think he was right to pursue them. But that's it. I do not think he's the man of the year.
It just is quite brave to go on when you've got so much opprobrium aimed at you.
And I think it is interesting to think, why was there so much opprobrium against him? Because we know that sort of Harry and Meghan have had a difficult time in the press. Now, I'm not someone who's sort of particularly invested in defending Harry or Meghan, but they did go to war with the tabloids. The tabloids set the news agenda. And I do think we have to ask, why have they been demonised so much? Is it because Harry was especially committed to trying to uncover what the tabloids have been doing?
No, I don't think that. I think their behaviour is certainly not above criticism. And,
OK.
I don't think they've been
just say this is Rebecca Brooks, who's a key executive, and the significance of her is Murdoch was always, that's her husband, Charlie, I think his name is. Murdoch was very loyal to her, brought her back in after she was acquitted in court of stuff relating to all of this. There may be more charges she could face. But what's interesting is that Kelvin Mackenzie, the kind of famous former editor of The Sun, has said that her position is starting to look untenable, because how on earth could she not have known about it if it was going on? Anyway, we'll leave it there. Thank you for your calls.